Well, good morning. I'm John Stork, and we're here today to convince you that e-filing is as easy as it really is. And we know that there's been a lot of angst in the legal community about how difficult it's going to be. In fact, we've heard some people may want to retire before we start with mandatory e-filing, but I want to tell you that it's really very easy. Next. And we're going to show you today how easy it is. Bill, you want to, and how hard can it be? It's 2014. Next. Think of what we do today electronically. When's the last time anybody got out their pencil and did their income tax returns? We all do them electronically. We've learned how to do that. Next. Checking accounts, all electronic. Next. How many people go to the bank and wait to get their cash? ATMs. I actually remember before ATMs. Next. And how many people are going to do this Christmas? Pull out the Sears catalog, fill out the fill out the paper order form, and order their product. Nobody does this. We all do it electronically. Next. And this is something that reminds me, back in 1994, I was a new judge, and they were just introducing computers to the judges. And there were judges who said, I'm never going to use a computer. And then one judge told me, I've got my new computer, I found one use for it. I can use it as a cup holder for my coffee. Think of how we've changed in all these years. And next. And court e-filing. You know, court e-filing, Wisconsin is really behind the rest of the country in many ways. We've had federal e-filing, bankruptcies since 2001, the federal district courts since 2002. Mandatory e-filing is in many other states. I just picked two here, Iowa, because of course the Badgers are going to beat Iowa tomorrow, and North Dakota. North Dakota has mandatory e-filing. Don't you think if North Dakota can have mandatory e-filing, the state of Wisconsin can have mandatory e-filing? And next. So we've got some goals today. Our first goal is I want you to know how to e-file a case in the state of Wisconsin circuit courts. And for those of you who are going to be entering the job market, if you can e-file and you master how to e-file, you go to a law firm, you go to a clerk of courts and say, I know how to e-file, that is going to be something that is going to make you an attractive employee for that employer. I want you to know how you can convert a paper file case to an e-file case. I want you to know where you can get additional help if you need help with e-filing. I want you to appreciate what tools judges have to deal with the e-file documents. Why? Because I anticipate that there will be some feedback, maybe not all positive, from all judges about e-filing, and yet the judges have excellent tools that we should be able to easily use the electronically filed documents. And I want you to understand the proposed Supreme Court rule that will move our state to mandatory e-filing. So we're going to start with that last one first, because I think that's why we're really here today, because there's talk about moving to a mandatory rule. And so I want to introduce for you the star-studded cast that we have for this video today, and I want to say that we really do have some very excellent presenters here today. First of all, we have Jean Bosquet. Jean is going to be our next speaker. She's right here at the computer. I'm just going to stand back. Jean is head of CCAP, and you all know what CCAP is. She is the top individual at CCAP, and CCAP, she's been with CCAP since 1993. She manages the development, implementation, and support of the court's information technology systems and custom application development for the circuit and the appellate courts, as well as all the administrative offices for the Wisconsin court system. So it's not just the circuit courts, but the courts of appeal, the Supreme Court, and all of their administrative offices, and she manages all of that. Then we have Andrea Olson. Andrea Olson has also been with CCAP since 1993, and she's the #2 person at CCAP. And she's responsible for the implementation and support of hardware and software applications, and oversees the operation of the CCAP call center, which is a great support for all of the judges, and actually has helped some e-filers as well, a place that they can call in and get some information. Finally, we have Catherine Kepsel. Catherine is an attorney in Dodge County. Catherine graduated from the UW-Madison in 2004 and from the UW Law School in 2009. She works with Quincy, Becker, Schuessler, Chase, and Devitt. She's been a lawyer for 6 years in Beaver Dam and Mayville, and she works in the areas of real estate contract, estate planning, probate, and criminal. She also has a 2-year-old and a 9-month-old, so I was very happy that she was able to take the time from her family and her practice to be here today. And I think most importantly, Catherine was our first e-filer in Dodge County. She's been e-filing in Dodge County for about 3 years. So with that, Jean, do you want to tell us a little bit about the status of the current e-filing rule and the movement towards mandatory e-filing?
Sure, thank you. So currently in the Wisconsin court system, e-filing is voluntary. So that means that the clerk of circuit court and the judges decide whether or not they want to e-file and offer e-filing in their counties. So we've been offering e-filing since 2008, and currently we have 27 counties that participate. So we have 72 counties, and only 27 have opted in 6 years. So we think we are failing at that a little bit as far as voluntary participation and hoping people will jump into e-filing. We think that there's a lot of benefit to doing things electronically. We know as younger students and younger people in the system that people are used to using tablets and smartphones and a lot of different devices to do business, and that you're not wed to the yellow legal pad like some of the people that are in the court system that we work with. So we think e-filing is really a good thing, but in order for it to really be successful, we have to kind of go all in. The idea of managing paper files and electronic files is a lot more cumbersome than partial paper and partial electronic, because you manage a file room over here and then you manage your electronic files somewhere else. So we really think there's a lot of benefit to going with fully electronic files, and that's what our goal is to get to fully electronic files for everyone. We currently, since 2009, we've had only 1% of our cases e-filed. So we haven't reached anything that would be near a critical mass. It's not anywhere near where we need to be. So we know that we've kind of come to the conclusion that voluntary e-filing just really isn't going to work, and it's going to take us a long time if we don't do something different. So we have chief judges that are from each district. There's 10 of them in the state of Wisconsin. They thought this is something that they should study and consider, and they came up with a mandatory e-filing rules petition that they've taken before the Supreme Court. And that petition was filed this fall. And what it will do is it will make e-filing mandatory in the circuit courts in the state of Wisconsin. So the places where mandatory e-filing will be impacted is with all attorney offices. So if any attorney is going to e-file in the state of Wisconsin, it will have to be an electronic file. All high-volume small claims filers will have to electronically file, and all new cases and cases that are pending or there's work being done on those will be converted to electronic files at the time that a county is implemented with mandatory electronic filing. Self-represented litigants may e-file, but they won't be required to e-file. So we will be dealing with paper and electronic files in the courts, but the clerk of court will make those files fully electronic. So as a filer, everything that you will receive will always be electronic on those cases. What our vision is a 3-year rollout. So if the Supreme Court agrees with this rollout, what we will do is we will plan to basically implement 1/3 of the judgeships over each year in a 3-year period. We plan to start January 2016 and conclude by December 2018. With the 27 counties that are currently participating, it's a lot of southeast Wisconsin, and there's a high volume of judges in that area. So we would probably start with those counties first because they're already trained in electronic filing. The judges have adopted or adapted somewhat to using electronic files, and we think that that would be probably the easiest transition areas for us. The order for those will be set by the Director of State Courts and then the CCAP Steering Committee, which is basically an advisory committee, technology advisory committee to the Director of State Courts. Some of the things that change with mandatory e-filing is that the record, the attorney signatures, currently, if you electronically file, the attorney has to sign every one of those documents, and with the new rule, that will be delegated to legal assistants and paralegals. So just like those paper documents are completed now, and then the attorney signs them and you mail them, the paralegal will be given authority if the attorney wants, so that those could be signed and mailed by that staff person. There will not be notaries that are necessary on small claims complaints, so that way the whole process of electronic filing e-filing doesn't involve the notary procedure with the stamp, so we think that will make that easier. We will get copies of all documents, so there won't be originals submitted to the court. They will only be copies except for exhibits. And so we will consider those copies that we get by filing as the original court document for our purposes. And then the last thing that we hope to hook the lawyers in on is that we're going to extend our filing deadline. So it won't be the fax filing rule, it would go to 11:59 that day. So you may have more overtime work if filing deadlines matter to attorneys. They may want you to stay late and work with them. When we do go mandatory, we will do all case types in a county at one time. And so we're looking for filing and additional staff at CCAP so we can actually make these implementations work. So what that means is when we would go into a county, we would send a lot of business analyst staff out there. And we would work with the local bar, the government agencies that e-file, and then the clerk staff and the judges. And we would basically embed our staff in that county and work with people with their filings, make sure they know what they're doing. If they have questions, we're right there to help. And then once people are feeling like we can do this, and hopefully Catherine will convince you it's very easy, then we're going to go away and go to the next county, and we will have an 800 number that people can call for assistance. So we like to think it'll be a new partnership that we will be working with you in the future, probably for as long as you're in the legal field filing these documents.
Okay, thank you, Jean. First of all, I want to just take a minute and introduce myself. I'm John Stork. I'm a circuit court judge in Dodge County. I've been a judge since 1994. I've been a chief judge and presiding judge, and I am probably the first judge to take a courthouse completely fileless and paperless. And currently, as of July 2014, we are no longer opening paper files at the Dodge County Courthouse. So the judges have gotten very used to using electronic files, and we're all set for the mandatory e-filing rule. The best way to get started with e-filing is to look at www.wicourts.gov and to go to their webpage. And you can see on the screen up here, I think you can see it, I was going to point out with my laser pointer, but it doesn't work on the screen. But you can see where it says e-file, e-courts up there on the screen. And you simply go to that webpage, and it'll take you, if you follow the circuit court link, it'll take you to a page that has all the information that you really need as to how to e-file. And it has a little video that you can watch. It also has a chart of all 27 counties that are currently permitting e-filing. So if you have a question, if you can e-file in a particular county or how to do it, this is the way to start. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing a live demonstration of e-filing. And that's why we didn't give you the materials beforehand, because the materials are going to be developed as we're going through this. And so we have Attorney Kepsel, who is at her office, and she's preparing a pleading, and she is going to e-file it to our clerk, and Andrea is going to be our clerk today. And then some of the documents may come to the judge to be signed or to be reviewed, and I'm going to be the judge. And so we're going to show you what really happens with the whole e-filing process. So, Catherine, are we ready to get started?
Wonderful.
If you give me just 2 seconds to pause and get the camera set.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So, Catherine, we have a case to file today?
We have a case to file today. Thanks for having us. I just want to say before we actually go into e-filing, I've been practicing, this is my 6th year. I work in a 6-attorney firm, and we have attorneys who have been practicing between my 6 years and the most senior attorney, who is in his 44th year. We also have a wide range of ages, of computer literacy, and willingness to learn at our firm. We have about 9 support staff, and despite the wide variety of computer literacy we have, e-filing has gone over pretty smoothly. It's been a really good transition. I think that the benefits of being able to maneuver through a case straight from your desk and being able to look at all of your documents in real time from your desk has really outweighed any fear of new technology. So I think the most important thing going in as a staff person, as an attorney, as somebody who really wants to e-file in an office is to be flexible. You know, there's going to be varying levels of computer literacy and willingness anywhere you go, and this system is going to change. This is not the final system. CCAP has been remarkably wonderful in how receptive you are in user feedback and developing in response to what attorneys are doing. So this system will change. So what you see here today is not necessarily what you're going to see in 6 months, but that's okay. Einstein said the measure of intelligence is our willingness to change. So let's be intelligent. Let's be flexible. Let's e-file. So the first thing you're going to do is you are going to go into the Wisconsin Court Systems website. It's the same place you guys find CCAP. Up here on the top, you have your e-file with your pull-down menu. You want to go to Circuit Court e-filing. That's how we end up here. As Judge Stork mentioned, there is a general form that you get that has the list of all the counties that e-file. It has the trainings on there. It also has the link to 80117, which is the e-file rule, in case you would ever need to discuss with opposing counsel why you're able to e-file if they're telling you you're not. Not that I've ever had that experience. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to log in. To do that, you're going to need a name and a password. For any attorneys that we have here today, you already have your login and your password eCourts. Because CLE reporting has been mandatory online, you already have that. So that's already taken care of. If you forget it, call CCAP. For those assistants who will be signing up, call CCAP. They will get you hooked up with your name and your password and the PIN that you'll use at the final stage of the e-filing process. So, just like we do with anything else, we're going to log in. Enter your username, enter your password, and let's hit login. You'll see on this one, it has a training stamp up here. That's because we've developed a training specially for today. Normally it wouldn't have that. We do not want to save your password. So this is the home screen for the Wisconsin Circuit Court e-filing program. You'll see the gray box on the right-hand side listing your main menu, your cases, your calendar. We'll go through all that. Right now, it's the same as your other options over here on the left, but the gray bar always stays, so you can always get back to your main screen if you ever need to. Let's talk a little bit about delegation. I want to go through this in a chronological order so you understand how this works. Delegation is a relatively new feature, I believe, from CCAP. I actually haven't used it, but my attorney and I have had a great time, my assistant and I have had a great time reviewing it this week. We've had a lot of fun with it. So you click on delegation. This gives my assistant the ability to help me in the virtual world the same way that she helps me in the real world. Typically, what happens in the paper world is my assistant will prepare documents for me, bring them in, I'll review them, I'll sign them, and I'll give them back to her to go get filed. At the end of this process, you will see I will enter a 4-digit PIN number. That is my electronic signature. That's how we do it when we're online. Instead of actually signing something and scanning it in, that's a hassle. We want to be able to just e-file from our desktop. If I enter my 4-digit PIN, that is how I am signing into this system. That is how you guys will sign into this system. Anything you enter, that 4-digit PIN that CCAP gives you, that will be your signature. When Judge Stork and I gave this presentation a couple of years ago in Dodge County, there was a lot of concern from assistants about, well, am I supposed to log in with the attorney's login? Am I supposed to enter the attorney's 4-digit code? Because I don't sign court documents. I'm not allowed to sign the attorney's name. Why would I be able to sign the attorney's 4-digit PIN? CCAP has fixed that. So now what I can do is I can grant delegation rights to our assistants in our office. I can either make it on a case-by-case basis, so my assistant can go into a case and she can see, which I'll show you in a second, all of the documents that have been filed on that case, or I can give her the ability to prepare and view documents. It's a little bit difficult to understand how this works without having my assistant here on her laptop next to me, but suffice it to say, what it lets her do is it lets her prepare the documents. She enters the information on the eCourts system. She will do everything that I will be showing you here today, and then she will hit Send to Attorney. On my eCourts log in, it will say, you have documents waiting to review. I will go through. I'll make sure that there aren't any typos. I'll make sure that she's uploaded the right document. I will enter my 4-digit PIN, which is my signature, and I will send it right back to her. So that is the virtual equivalent of, in the real world, her bringing the stuff into me, I sign it, and I give it back to her. So that's the delegation feature. It's pretty slick. It's very user-friendly. Once you're familiar with the system, you'll have no problems with it. So that's what the delegation feature is.
And Catherine, excuse me, with that delegation, I think one of the reasons why Catherine's law firm has been so successful is that when we got together to train the law firm, they had all of their staff there to be trained. And it's really the staff in the law office that does the e-filing, and many times the attorney will simply use their PIN to sign it. And so for those of you who are going to the paralegal world, and you're talking about e-filing abilities that you may have, an attorney would be very interested in delegating to you all of the authority to do the e-filing, especially somebody with gray hair like me. So, Catherine, go ahead.
So, what do we need to file a case? Well, in the paper world, you need a summons, a complaint, your exhibits, you need a filing fee. So, let's create that electronically. What you do is you'd go into Word, you'd create your pleadings the same as you would normally, and we're going to create a summons and a complaint and our exhibits. Except we can't file anything in Word. It needs to be in PDF to put it in the e-filing system. So you're going to need a document scanner, or you're going to need the ability to convert from Word to PDF. Adobe Acrobat has that feature. Adobe Reader does not, but there are also free PDF to Word converters if you need them. You can just Google one, and there's free software available. So let's look at my summons and complaint, which is ready for filing. This is my document. We have the case of Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader, also known as Anakin Skywalker. We have our summons telling Darth Vader he needs to answer within 20 days. Scroll down. You will notice it's not signed. There's no signature on here. That's okay. I'm going to enter my PIN later in the process. Scroll down. Here's our complaint. Our complaint is lightsaber injury. There are medicals. There are lost wages here. This has been done, this lightsaber injury was in reckless and willful disregard of Mr. Skywalker's bodily safety. We have a picture of the lightsaber is attached to his Exhibit A. I attached all this. We're going to scroll down. Again, not signed. I've attached all this in one PDF. Don't do multiple PDFs for your summons and complaint, just do one. Here is our exhibit. There is the offending lightsaber. We have all of this in PDF form. So it's not signed. I don't need to print this out. I don't need to sign it. We can do everything from my desktop. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to go back into our circuit court e-filing, and we're going to go to new filing. File a new case. County, file in Dodge, that's where I am. Our case type is civil. Right now in Dodge and I believe 2 other counties, you can do paternity, family law, which our office actually doesn't do, civil, and small claims. But criminal, probate, other types should be coming down the pipe in the next couple of years. But this is a civil case. Our class code. For every case, you have a case number and you have a class code, which tells the clerk what kind of a case this is. This particular one is an intentional tort. Terrible with that lightsaber injury. Make sure it's all correct and click Next. This is where it's going to be helpful, whether you have a dual monitor, whether you have the document pulled up in front of you, you're going to enter everyone's information the same as it appears in the complaint. So filing party, plaintiff. Our first name is Luke. Our last name is Skywalker. Our address is 123 Main Street, Mayville, Wisconsin, 53050. Is the party known by another name? No. Again, it'll say this on your complaint. This is something that you would take off of the pleading that you've generated. Is this party 18 years old? Yes. Okay, move on. Because I am creating, or my assistant is creating this e-filing, and we've already logged in, it already knows who I am, it is saying, is your attorney address correct? If it's not, well, you need to call CCAP, you need to update it to make sure that all the mailings go to where they should be, even though we don't really have mailings because it's virtual, it's all email. So, click Next. The plaintiff, Luke Skywalker. Do we want to add another plaintiff? Not for this particular case, but this is where you'd add another plaintiff if you had multiple. Next. Name and address for defendant 1, the type of party being sued. This is where you can enter defendant or respondent if you were in family court. First name, Darth. Last name, Vader. The address, I believe I put in 456 Park Avenue, Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, 53916. Scroll down. Is the party known by another name? Yes. Yes, he is. Add another name for this party. Pull down menu, I can do doing business as, now known as, previously known as. Here we have an also known as, and he is also known as Anakin Skywalker. We're going to save that. So we now have all of our information correct. Hit next. We add another defendant, not in this particular case. If you had a, well, we'll get to that in a second. Do we have any other parties to add? If you had a third-party defendant, if you had a creditor, if you had other parties, again, it'll be in your pleadings, you'll already know that. Here's where you'd have the opportunity to enter them. Here we don't, so we're going to say no. Click next. So now we've gotten to the uploading portion of the e-file. Our document title is a summons and complaint. That is the only option you have when you do a new e-file. Makes it easy. We're going to choose our file and upload it to the e-court system. So here's our summons and complaint that we already generated. We've made sure that our summons, our complaint, and our exhibits are all in one PDF. We're going to upload them. So we've chosen our file, and we have a couple of checkboxes down here. This document needs to be electronically notarized. If something needs to be notarized like a complaint or an affidavit, again, we don't want me to have to print it out and sign it. That would take so much effort. So we can notarize it from our desktop electronically. That's something that your assistant would do or another notary in your office. They would need a CCAP password as well. So right now, let's click yes, even though we're not actually going to notarize it because my assistant's not here. There's also the second box that says, check here to request the court seal this document. Oh, okay. I can't show that to you. Just kidding. It's very easy. Basically it'll come up with an additional box where I will call my assistant over and say, Sherry, enter your CCAP password, enter your CCAP PIN, and an electronic notary seal appears. So this other box, click here to request the court seal this document. The first time I e-filed, my assistant and I looked at it and said, well, yeah, we want a court seal on this. It doesn't actually mean, do you want the file stamp on it? It means, do you want the court to seal it, for example, if this was a divorce petition that had sensitive information on it. So we do civil, there's nothing that we need sealed that I've come across yet, but that's what that means. It doesn't mean the file stamp, it means, is the court sealing it from public view? So right now we have our summons and complaint, we've chosen our file, let's upload our document. Here's our summons and complaint. We haven't requested a notary. If I had, this is where my assistant would have the opportunity to enter her information. And I can remove it if I accidentally uploaded the wrong one. So let's click next. Additional documents. The additional documents, I haven't found a case yet where I've had to file additional documents when I'm filing a new case. But as I'm going to show you when we file subsequent documents on here, this is when you do additional documents. So for the ease of the judge and for the ease of e-filing at the very beginning, you only have one option. You can file your one document, summons and complaint. There shouldn't be any additional documents that you should need to file. That may be different for family court. I can't speak to that. So here we don't have any additional document. Let's click next. Are you requesting a jury trial? This is where you'd request a jury trial if you wanted one. Nah, we don't need a jury trial. So here's our reviewing system. We have the civil filing, we have our case code, that's correct. We have Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader. We have the plaintiff and his address, we have the defendant and his address as well, and we have our summons and complaint, and we have something new, the electronic transmittal letter. Every single document that you e-file will also generate an electronic transmittal letter. It's the equivalent of having the court file stamp it. Even though we have an electronic file stamp on there, it's always nice to have that additional thing saying on such and such a time you uploaded this. We keep them in our files. They don't need to be served. They don't need to be presented to the court in any way. I would think, unless you had a dispute about whether something uploaded or not, if for some reason technology broke down and the judge said, no, you didn't file this on time, you could pull out your electronic transmittal letter and say, yes, I did. It's the equivalent of a a fax transmittal. So we have our PIN. This is where I'm going to sign this. You see down here, it says, by entering my PIN, I'm applying my electronic signature. It shall be treated as my personal original signature. So now I'm going to enter my PIN. File and pay. We are now ready to submit our filing. If I were filing a bunch of collections actions at the same time, this is where, much like Amazon, you can put 18 different things in your cart and then check out. You don't need to pay for each individual one. That will spare your bookkeeper some headaches. You can file a bunch of different cases and then pay in one big batch, which is kind of nice. Today, we only have the one. So we're going to submit our filing. This is the final step. We have now submitted our filing. We need to finish up by making our electronic payment. This says you can't come back to the eFiling website to make payment later. Please write this number down. I always print out this screen. I've never had US Bank ask for this number, so I don't know why I print it out. Just one more level of security. But you need to make payment now. You can't come back and do it later. So let's make payment. So this is the one. This is a little bit different because I'm in the training session versus the way I normally do it. Typically, I would use my same username and user password for eCourts, the same one that I used at the beginning of the process to sign in here. Today, we're not going to do that. We're going to pay without registering. The payment gives you two options. You can either pay each time by a credit card, or you can set up a direct debit, what they call an e-check with US Bank. US Bank is the only option you have to work with for the payment system because that's who CCAP works with. We've set up an e-check. That means I don't need to enter any credit card information. What I would do is I would have all this information pre-entered, and there would be a section down at the bottom allowing me to do e-check. That's not an option here today, but that is the easiest way to do it. If your bookkeeper has any questions, tell them to get an e-check set up.
Okay, just an additional comment, with the payment, for every e-file case, there's a fee of $5, and then you do pay a very small fee for an e-check. An e-check is actually cheaper usually than a credit card.
Yeah, it's $2.50.
And there's been some comments, well, we don't want to pay the additional $5, but at the courthouse, I've looked at the envelopes that the attorneys send in these documents with, and the postage is more than $5. And that's just the first filing. So it's really economical for the filing attorney and for all the subsequent filings as well. And I want to say, if people have questions as we're going through this, we've got a smaller group. Anybody has some questions, feel free to ask, okay? Catherine, go ahead. We're about to pay some money.
When you bring up the $5, I mean, when you just send the documents in to get filed at the court, that can exceed $5, but don't forget, you have to have the courthouse send it back. You need to include a self-addressed stamped envelope, so your office is really paying postage for every summons and complaint twice for that big batch that you send in. So $5 is definitely much cheaper. So for our purposes, I don't need to enter any information here today. I'm going to select my payment method. Let's do a credit card. I have my fake credit card number. Oh, okay. Do you want me to just click submit, or do you want me to enter all the information? Okay. Okay, let's do that. So what I'm going to do is I am going to be making my, oh, nope, it's not letting me do it. That's okay, we'll pretend it went through. Yay, it paid, yay. So in the real world, now when I filed for the first time is when I said, yes, we're ready, we can go ahead. Let's print out all those copies and let's send them in for service. You can't do it yet. There's a final step to e-filing that has nothing to do with the assistant and nothing to do with the attorney. The clerk actually needs to go in to the system, and the clerk needs to approve your filing. There's really three big steps. There's uploading the documents you want and entering all your information. There's submitting it to the court, making your payment. and then the clerk needs to approve it. So I need to wait until I get approval back from the clerk to be able to do anything. So right now, I just have my documents hanging out there in limbo. So the clerk needs to go in from the clerk's perspective, and the clerk needs to approve my documents.
Here we have Andrea, who has just recently been employed by the Dodge County Clerk of Courts.
It's my first day on the job, so hopefully it all goes well. So I'm just going to really quickly here, I'm just going to get back to the eFiling website and our link here, just so it's available for Catherine when she gets notification from the clerk that her case has been filed. If, of course, she did everything right and we approve it for filing. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to show you just a little bit about, kind of at a high level, what the clerk does, right? So as we saw, Catherine submitted her filing. She made payment, right? We all saw that work, and she got her payment to go through. So what happens then is that filing is all en route to the Dodge County Clerk of Courts office, all electronically through the wide area network. So then what happens as the clerk is I get a notification. You can see where this button, right now, just for training purposes, I apologize, it says criminal. It really, I'm just going to show you because we have one glitch where I have to get to it a little bit of a different way. But what happens in the clerk's office is they get an alert and it turns a color, so now they know something new, electronic, came in, and they need to go in their system and review it and file it. So that's how they know, kind of like the paper. They know when the paper comes in, right? It gets filed, now they have to work with it. They do the same thing, but in the virtual world, electronically. So I'm going to go in here in the clerk system, and I'm going to find that filing. Everything should be all set. And here is my filing that Catherine sent through. So as the clerk now, I can see information up on this top part of the screen, and that's everything that Catherine entered in on the website. So you can see, I know it's a little bit small to read, I can see that it was filed by Catherine Kupsel, her attorney number. I can see the name of her plaintiff, the name of her defendant. So we have Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader, and her address information. That piece of it that she entered in is a really big benefit to the courts, because when you enter that information, I, as the clerk now, I don't need to retype the information because the system's going to automatically create it in my case management system for me. But my job now as the clerk is I need to verify that that information looks right. And then I also am going to click on my view filing document, because I need to make sure that the filing document is right as well, and that matches the parties that she put in and all the address information and the type of case and so on. So that's my job as the clerk of what I'm doing. So once I review that document, the other thing I want to quickly show you is I can also see the transmittal letter. So let's just take a look at that. Catherine talked a little bit about the transmittal letter. The most important thing about the transmittal letter right now, which is under the e-filing rule we're operating under, the voluntary rule, is that the transmittal letter contains the electronic signature. So Catherine showed you how she didn't sign the summons and complaint. Those lines were blank for her signature. Well, this is actually her signature. So the act on the e-filing website of her entering in that 4-digit PIN placed her signature here on the transmittal letter. There's a transmittal letter submitted for every document that you file. And you can see within this transmittal letter now, it tells us on November 21st, 2014, a civil case with this class code that she selected was electronically filed in Dodge County. Okay, so that's that coming through. It tells us the name of the document, summons and complaint. That's what she submitted. And at the bottom is her signature. So that's what the transmittal letter looks like. So back here in our case management, reviewing our filing, I now see that everything looks good. I'm going to assign this case to Judge Stork, and I'm going to make sure that I calendar that now, and I'm going to put it on for a hearing for Judge Stork. And one second here. So I'm going to schedule that to be on December 10th, starting at 9 o'clock and ending at 9:15. So then when I save that, what will happen is it now will get that case number assigned to it. As that saves, so now that's gone as the clerk, it's gone from my list. I don't have any more e-filings to process because it's all gone. Now it's in my case management system, which means it's available for all of the court system staff to see. It's available for the judge to see. It's now on the judge's calendar for December 10th, so now he knows that this case has been calendared. Catherine, as the filing attorney, she now gets an email that tells her that this case has been filed. So now we'll show you what that looks like, and I'll switch over to Catherine. I'm just going to grab the email for her, which isn't there quite yet. I'm going to show you a sample one. Oh, there it is. So it comes in from Wisconsin Courts e-file at wicourts.gov, and this tells her that that case has been filed and what the case number is, and it has a link to every one of those filing documents that she filed, which now have the authentic court seal on those documents. So I'm going to turn it back over to Catherine, and she can talk a little bit about that email and then what she would do from this point on to then get it served and manage her case electronically.
Thank you, clerk.
Yes.
Good job on your first day. So this is my email telling me that my documents have been accepted. The clerk thinks all is well. I do get an email actually before this. So you're going to get inundated the first time you start a case. You're going to get a document saying you paid the filing fee. That's going to go straight into your email. You're also going to get this. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. We're also going to get an email. We don't have a copy of it that simply says, notice this document has been submitted. It doesn't have any links in it. All it says is the doc has been submitted. That's how you know it's been submitted. Hey, I put it in there. You just kind of have to hang out and wait between that submission letter and then when you get this next email back saying, here are your documents. So we can go in. Can we click on the summons and complaint?
Sure, give it a
Let's try. Let's try. Summons and complaint. What does a filed summons and complaint looks like? Oh, okay. Oh, yes, because every time you click, you do need to log in.
Exactly.
And there is my filed document. See, we have the file stamped on there. It says filed. November 21st, 2014, Clerk of Circuit Court, Dodge County, Wisconsin, 2014 CV 474. That's our case number. So practice tips, I'm going to cover a few of them later, but point of practice, I always, in Outlook, I create a new subfolder in my inbox for every single new case that I have. Our firm has started doing that. It's the only way we can keep this stuff straight because you have so many things coming in. For example, if you were e-filing on a criminal case and you filed a dozen blanket motions at the same time, you were going to get an email saying, you have filed all of these motions, and the pinging of your inbox is going to slowly drive you crazy. What is easier is if you can just create one subfolder for each case. Every time you get an email on that case, dump it in there. It's a very clean way of making sure that you have all of your emails on a specific case in one place. That's really worked well for our office. So we now have our filed complaint. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go have Darth Vader served. And another point of practice, having a color printer. It's difficult for people when they get something, I mean, not only are they being sued, but you have something that isn't actually signed. And people aren't happy to get sued anyway. I've had other attorneys call and say, I'm not accepting this. This isn't signed. Yes, it is. It's e-filed. Look at my e-filed stamp here. The other thing that you're going to get to print out is you're going to get the electronic filing notice. This will need to be served upon the defendant along with the summons and the complaint. So another point of practice, don't forget to add that into your affidavit of service. Some process servers generate their own. We've had to give people reminder letters to say, you need to make sure to say, I served the summons and the complaint and the electronic filing notice on the defendant on such and such a day. This is the electronic filing notice. This is what I point opposing counsel to when I say, no, look, this says it was electronically filed with, converted by the Dodge County Clerk of Circuit Court. You may register as an electronic party. Here's your website. There's a $5 registration fee, and we'll talk about opting in as an electronic party in a second here. Unless you register as an electronic party, you will be served with traditional paper documents by other parties and the court. Here is the court's phone number, and it's electronically signed by our clerk of court. So you need to make sure to serve this along with your summons and your complaint. There we go. So now we have filed our summons and complaint. We have our electronic filing notice. We've printed them all out. We send them to the process server. It's kind of nice. A lot of, especially the new process servers we have, say, don't send me anything by mail, email it to me. So we're getting a lot of stuff served the next day. That's another good function of we don't have to wait for a process server unless they're out hunting somebody down. We can get it to them immediately. So we've served Darth Vader. We've waited our 20 days. He hasn't answered. He's not contesting the fact that he caused this lightsaber injury. That's a good thing. So what are we going to do? We are going to file notice with the court saying he defaulted, Judge. He didn't answer within his 20 days. So my cases. What do we have? We have all of my electronic cases in one spot. This lists everything that I have open right now. Scrolling. There is our most recent case. I can look in here and I can say view documents. This lets me view all of the documents we have filed on a case. And I can show you one of my other cases that's been going on for a while. It's a long laundry list. It's really nice to be able to have them all in one place. There will never again be a case of, oh, I sent that motion for summary judgment down the hall for my colleague to review and he never gave it back and now we can't find it. Your filings are always going to be available for you day or night, whether that's good or not. You can also view your parties on a case. This tells me that the plaintiff, Luke Skywalker, is an e-filer, so I'm the plaintiff, I know that, but if I had two defendants and one opted in as a party, then I know that I don't need to send anything by mail. However, if somebody doesn't opt in as a party, we have to give them notice still. Sorry, it's not mandatory yet, so he has to get a paper notice. This is a nice way of making sure that you can verify who's paper and who's e-file, because when you have a lot of parties on one particular case, it can be difficult to remember. So that's always available here under View Documents, View Parties. If I click the link that says 2014 CV 474 with our case number, that will actually take me to the CCAP website, the standard one that we all use. So we want to file our affidavit of default and send a proposed order to the judge. Let's file another document. Well, what are we going to file? Let's file our affidavit of default. So I'm going to go into my file. That is not my file folder. I'm sorry, Andrea.
I think you choose file.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
Or did you want to show it?
I wanted to show it, but that's not a big deal. That's not a... Yeah.
Well, you can click the icon.
I go. This one?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Thank you. I'm using Andrea's computer this morning, so bear with me. So here's our affidavit for default judgment. So this is something that I, as the attorney, am sending to Judge Stork to say this person hasn't answered. I scroll down. Darth Vader, defendant, was served. More than 20 days have passed. You will notice it is not signed. Just like our summons and complaint, I don't need to sign it. Neither does my assistant because she's going to notarize it for me, even though I can't officially show that to you today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to upload an additional document. Choose files. There's my affidavit. Make sure that's uploaded. Now we have to title it. Remember before, the only option it gave us was summons and complaint because that's the only option you have when you first file a civil case. Now we have many different things we can choose from. This is an affidavit, and it's an affidavit of default and non-military service. So I've entered that in as the name. Another point of practice in speaking with the judge, as you'll see, it's difficult because the judge has all of the filings on their computer and Judge Stork is looking through. He can't tell if that's my motion for default. He can't tell if it's somebody else's motion for default. It really helps to put plaintiffs. Excuse me. So it really helps to label your documents. Maybe eventually CCAP will have an option where it fills this in for us, but for right now, I think it's a nice courtesy to the court. It makes things very easy for them to find. So this is how it's going to come up under our My Documents, and this is how it's going to come up on the judge's dashboard. So we have our plaintiff's affidavit of default to non-military service. I would click notarize because this is an affidavit. Again, we can't show that to you. Let's hit next. There we go. Is there no additional document for the proposed order?
Oh, right.
Okay, well,
Choose files.
oh, okay, okay. If you may have recalled when I first did my summons and complaint, it asked me to upload my documents, then it asked me to upload additional documents. Typically, this is where I would upload my motion and my affidavit for default, and then it would ask me, do you have any other documents to add? What I would do is, well, judge to sign an order. So we need to upload an order. So remember when I said about 15 minutes ago that everything needs to be in PDF? There's an exception to every rule. Orders. Orders have to be in Word form, and they need to be with the .docx handle. You can't use the old school where it's just .doc, which is Windows 2004, I believe. You need to be using a more current version of Windows. The reason we do this is because we go into court, we go in for a hearing, and the judge says, no, there's no evidence here that the medical damages for Luke Skywalker were $9 million, they were only $7 million. Well, he can print it out, and then he can scratch out 9 million, and he can put in 7 million, and it's, of course, an order of the court, but it doesn't look very official. So we're uploading this in Word so that the judge can make any alterations to the order that he wants in real time with it in front of him, and it will end out typed and nicely. So let's look at our order. This is our proposed order for judgment. We have our case header. It's not signed because the judge hasn't signed it yet, of course, but it's in Word document. That's the format we need it to be in. So I'm going to choose an additional file. Again, you would get a screen that says File Additional Documents. That's where you would do it. Our proposed order. It recognized it as a proposed order. That's because it's in Word. That's the only option it's going to give me, proposed order. Now, can we see the proposed order? Will that come up? E-file proposed order? Yeah. Okay, okay. So I'm going to hit next. I'm going to hit next. So I'm looking here. I have my affidavit of default and I have my proposed order. Now again, it's time for my signature. File and pay. There are no costs to file a default judgment, so the total is 0. We're going to submit our filing. So now, from the clerk side.
Yep. So basically, what would happen is then, just as happened with our new case filing, on the clerk side, it would show up in this e-filing review button next to the yellow one. When that document comes through, and it will take it a few minutes to get through the server, but when that document comes through, this button would turn orange. And then the clerk would do the same exact thing that we did when we did the new filing, is we would go in and we would review that, and then we would file that document, and it would get the file stamp, and then Catherine would get an email back saying it was filed by the court. Okay? I'm going to turn it back over to you, Judge Stork.
Well, do you now have sent me the order?
Allegedly, yes.
Okay. Well, you sent me the order.
Yes.
And what I'm going to show you is how a judge can now deal with the order.
1 second, please.
To documents, I can pull up any of these documents and look at them. But what has happened here is the clerk has sent me a proposed order, and what would happen is that with the judge, it would come up here, it would indicate where it says documents to sign. I can open up that order. In Word, I can modify the order, and then I can put in my PIN and I can sign the order. And then when the order is signed, it goes back to the clerk, and then the order is distributed electronically out to all e-filers, and then on paper to anybody who has not filed electronically. So with the dashboard, judges really have very easy access to electronic documents and electronic signing. Yes?
So the reason why the order's in Word is just in case the judge wants to modify it?
Correct. Yeah. That's why it's in Word. Some orders we modify, some we don't. We get a lot of orders that actually are not in Word. They're usually warrants that we get that are on a CCAP form. But yes, that's why it's in Word.
So what you would see is, from your perspective as an assistant or as an attorney, is you would get an email back and it's going to bring up your proposed e-filed order. So it's not the signed e-filed order, just prior to signing it's going to come back and it's going to be in PDF with a big proposed watermark across it. You don't have to put that in. The clerk's office will do it for you. It's a way of saying this is the proposed order that was submitted. The one that we get back will actually say this has been electronically signed by Judge John Stork. That will come back. So it's a very easy differentiation between this is the proposed order and this is the signed order. In some ways it's actually easier than on paper where you're scrolling through to the back to see if that's the version that was signed and to see if any changes were made. So the other options we have here are my calendar.
To transition back to you, please.
And
It's important to do that. It just makes it a lot easier. You can do it all from your desktop. A color printer is a good idea. Letterhead that accommodates the e-file seal. As our office has uploaded letters to Word, or excuse me, letters to the e-file system, we've noticed that our particular letterhead actually is right over the seal, so it's difficult for people to tell if it was e-filed or not. We're going to be changing it up this year and accommodating a probably 2 by 2 inch square block on everything so that it's going to be nice and clean for e-filing. I've also mentioned the need to keep things in a separate inbox. That works out well for me. And then actually saving the documents. My assistant and I have a system where she gets an email. Anything she gets, she actually prints out because that's how we keep them in our office, and then she saves them to the file. We save everything in the format of date. We do year, 2014, month, and then day. And the reason we do that is because when you hit order, and then we'll put plaintiff summons and complaint, and then we'll put 2014, put the date, and then have the next thing, defendant's answer. And the reason we do that is because then when you sort them in Word, it actually sorts in chronological order. And that's a little thing, but that's really, really helped our office to streamline when it comes to e-filing. Judge, is there anything from your perspective that is particularly helpful?
I can't think of anything. Jean, Andrea, any? Are there questions that individuals have?
So when you set it up and select your delegate, I, as your assistant, would also get the email notice saying file?
Yes.
Both of us would get it at the same time?
Yes.
So you don't have to share it with me?
What we did before the delegation system is I would just forward it straight to my assistant and just say print save. Print save.
Assuming you're going to share it.
Assuming I'm going to share it, yes. Which I am going to share it.
Our students have a very similar way in which they submit assignments to us. Sometimes they submit the wrong assignment. What happens if somebody submits the wrong document? Can you speak to that? Like they say that it's a summons and complaint, but in fact it's a motion or an affidavit. How can that be remedied?
So just as it would work in the paper world, so the clerk is the custodian of the record. So that's the important role of the clerk's office, is to review those filings, all of those filings, and then they determine is that filed in the right county? Is that filed on the right case if it's an affidavit, for example? And if it's not in the electronic world, then the clerk can reject that filing. They can type in a reason for the rejection, and then the filer would get an email and it would have that information that says why it was rejected. So then you would be notified, you could correct that and then file the right document on that case.
Generally speaking, clerks will accept most documents that are filed, and then if there's an error, that can be corrected after. So if something does come in, that will generally stay on the record.
Judge, would that have to be something that would be subject to a motion then? Or you would just treat that as just sort of a clerical error that you could deal
Probably
with?
treat it as just an amended document that has been filed.
Okay.
But I do anticipate that as we get into the mandatory e-filing, that what's going to be happening is in other counties is going to be what has happened in the Dodge County court system. As I indicated to you, as of July 1, 2014, we're no longer creating paper files. We store everything electronically. And so we have systems also. How do you get the documents from the clerk to the judge, the judicial assistant, and back into the file? How do you do that all electronically? And you have to set up an email system to do that. And we really have what I would describe as a paper-on-demand system. It's not a paperless system because, of course, if you need to print something out, you can. So there is always going to be a purpose for paper, and I'll show you that I think that there are some efficient things that we need to have. Or we need.
Emma.
Every day it's getting on my nerves.
Emma.
Oh, I'm
Emma.
begging
Emma.
Okay, with that, I think we've run out of time. Are there any questions that anybody has?
When does state come what are they mandatory? You know? So again, right now we're voluntary for